Charlee Fraser is Australian modelling royalty, and this year she's breaking into Hollywood.
I'm excited, but I'm nervous.
In her first International Fashion Week, she walked over 40 shows, and she has graced the cover of pretty much every Australian fashion publication. She's kicked off her acting career with 2 huge films, Anyone But You, which broke the box office this summer, and the new Mad Max film, She's Not Here to Play. In this episode, we dive into everything from how she's becoming one of Australia's most well-known faces to how she's connected her Aboriginality to shape the foundations of her character, Bassa.
She's a mother and she's a warrior and she's a leader.
Charlee and I had so much fun in this interview.
We're at Process the Podcast. Let's get into it.
And I hope you love it. Charlee, we met. I shot you for Scanlan Theodore pre-pandemic. You were the first model for Scanlan that I'd shot. And I was blown away. I was like, oh
Stop.
My God.
Wait, by me?
Yes, you just look, oh my God. Everything was just epic. I'm so passionate about Scanlan because my first job was on the shop floor at Scanlan.
Yeah.
When I was 15. And it was like shopping. It was great. But every time you came out, I was like, oh, that dress is amazing.
Oh, I'm doing my job well then.
It was really, really fun. And then you were in town and you did NGV Gala.
I did.
And that was so fun. And you were like, can you come to video? I was like, yes, I can. Why, yes.
I know.
And then we got to hang out for however long that was. It was like 45 minutes, but it was so great.
Fast. But I really appreciate you coming through for that too, by the way, because you were also helping Jesper.
Yes.
And you were just on it. And
all the content was so good too.
I loved the content. I'm feeling professional having that kind of stuff.
When I met you, you were like, yeah, I'm pivoting into acting. I've just done 2 films. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. Trying not to be a sticky beak. They're not just 2 films. They're the films.
Sorry.
Charlee. What? And then I was like, oh my God, it's the film of the summer. And then I don't know how to pronounce the Mad Max one that you've just done. Furiosa. And then you go on IMDb and you're like, okay, Charlie's just getting started in the acting game. It'll kind of be like a modest, maybe like ranked, maybe she's like 10th cast member. You're like right under Chris Hemsworth on the IMDb list. I'm like, she's not here to play, guys. She's definitely not here to play.
I'm like, I'm excited. This is where I'm at.
I'm dying. I'm so excited for you. This is just massive. You give off a vibe and you're in control.
At least I try to.
Yeah. It's very like on purpose. It's not, you're not flying by the seat of your pants.
No, I'm very intentional.
Yes.
Like I want to produce good work. This is probably like not the right thing to say, but I do have a lot of my value is in the work that I produce. So a lot of my self-worth and my value is in producing good stuff. You know, I should work on like having that in other places, which I do and I am, but I do cultivating self-worth and value, not always in like what I produce into the world, but just having it like within myself in general.
For sure.
But I do. I put a lot of pride and a lot of hard work into what I do, and it's important to me that I am just working at an optimal level, doing my best. I love that. I love hard work and then reward. I don't like reward without hard work.
Yeah, okay.
I feels like I've cheated or I've stolen something. Like it also doesn't feel as fulfilling to me to have received like compliments or think that it's good if I haven't really intentionally like dedicated my time and effort to it. Like I feel really good about that. So I'm an intentional worker. I want to say I got lucky, but also there was a lot of like the stars aligned and a lot of things that went into that becoming how I started.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
And I love that you're in Australia right now as well for the summer and for Anyone But You and all of those things. So then now you can kind of do the PR. You've got a cover coming out.
Yeah.
It's all just...
I might have a few.
Amazing. How good.
I don't know,
Can't
I'll have
wait
to circle
see
back
those.
and confirm that.
Okay, cool. Well, we know one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. In style. Yes. In style?
I don't know if I can say that.
You can. We're dropping it up when it happens.
Right, yes.
Your publicist said that I can say.
Oh my God, yes, that conversation. Oh yes, sorry guys. Yes, in style cover is coming. Enjoy.
Right, it's confirmed. We're good.
I know I forget they're doing this now, but like when it comes out, this is all going to...
today. Yeah. I'm not revealing the secrets.
No,
I know how this works.
It's like... it's not you, it's me that doesn't know how it works. I'm still getting used to it.
It's fine. You've got a lot to manage. It's been a busy calendar. So modelling, take me back to Newcastle, teenage Charlee. What was she like? Pre-modelling, before you even knew that you were going to do this?
I was such a dork.
Oh, bless.
I was a little dork at school. I really was. Like, I was just this gangly gal, like, which I'm sure
All the best ones are and were.
right? No.
Yeah.
Which I feel resonates with a lot of other models and their stories. You know, just I personally felt very gangly at school, and I grew very quickly. I was like this tall since I was like 12, and
Right.
so I'm taller than all the guys. I'm taller than all the girls. But I loved school because I really loved learning, but I don't feel like I connected with a lot of the people I went to school with.
Yeah.
So
What was different? What were you seeking out?
I don't know. Well, you're a teenager. You don't really know anything. I mean, I had friends and stuff, but once I left school, we all kind of like lost touch, and I did my own thing, and I guess I cultivated relationships in the industries that I was in that kind of support what I was doing. But yeah, so little gangly me, loved school, but
She sounds really cute.
a bit awkward. No, I don't know, awkward, less awkward, more clumsy.
Yes.
You know, comes with the
limbs.
the limbs, the long limbs. It's like, and I do it all the time now. I haven't spilled anything yet, touch wood.
Okay.
But I'm always spilling things. But I almost fell off this chair a second ago before we hit record.
She did.
But yeah, I guess like even preschool, like pre-teenage, like as a kid, I was very imaginative. I loved being outdoors. I specifically remember I would always climb trees and pick flowers off like the jacaranda out the side, and I'd make little potions in the backyard with like, you know, sticks and dirt and sometimes mum's conditioner, you know, when you do that. And so I loved doing all of that. And then I got a little bit older and Dad taught me how to dirt bike. So I had a dirt bike. So I grew up riding motorbikes, which was really fun. So it was very like active and outdoors and just imaginative and creative in a way, which obviously doesn't make sense to me until now. I'm like, oh yeah.
It's all
That all makes sense now.
Totally. When you first started modeling, your ability to turn it up, turn it on, your energy on a set and your poise in front of a camera is a hell of a combination. It's unbelievable, like to see you work. It's really, really a marvel to watch.
Thank
and because
you.
I've been on sets, I do that. That's like I'm a different part of the industry to you, but I feel like it's one and the same. We're constantly on film sets. We're working with people, all the different energies. Everybody's got a different job to do. You are a fantastic person to watch work. How did you go developing that muscle?
Wow. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
It's like, I need to keep you
I'll
around.
DM you. I'll text you later, doll. Don't worry.
I need a little G up right now. Let's go. It's really, really nice to hear because it's something that I do really naturally. It's something, like I said, it's a part of just how I work. So for someone to acknowledge it in that way, I feel is very, it feels very nice. It's just, I appreciate it a lot. Makes me feel like, again, like I did a good job, you know? Like I worked hard and I do well. So I will say the very first time I was put in front of a camera, it just felt right. It just felt natural. I felt like I was given one direction and I was able to just go with it. And I picked it up so fast, and so far in my life as like a young woman, I had never felt that before. I'd never picked up something so quickly. I'd never felt so naturally organic at something. And so when this happened, it was just kind of like, whoa. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it just felt, I don't know, like my body felt it, or I don't even know how to explain it, but it did feel very natural, and I learnt very, very fast. So I also really honored movement.
Yeah.
And the way that I move, I felt was very different to other models as well. Like, and it's changed and it's evolved like over the span of my career. But definitely the whole first half of my career, I was like a very intentional. I think too, I danced a lot when I was younger.
Yeah, okay.
So I could really
So
isolate.
in your body.
Yeah, I could isolate my body in different ways and just kind of work. And I wasn't afraid to be weird. Like I wasn't trying to look too pretty. Like, I don't know. It was so organic. And you pick up cues as you're shooting as well. Like if the when you're wearing something, like what the details are, or like how it looks best when you stand, or but also how you feel and how you look when you stand, and also the lighting's coming this way and the camera angle's this way, and you just kind of pick up those things and put them all together.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did anyway. So, and I guess when you just like combine all of that, and then it does become a little bit like autopilot. Like your body gets used to it. Your body remembers, and so then I can just get in front of a camera and I can just move around, and I know my angles. I know like all the inches of my body and where they should be, or at least where I think they should be. Sometimes you see the photo and it's like, oh nope, that didn't work. Try again, and then you change it. But it's just a lot of. I picked it up quickly, but. Yeah, a little bit of practice for sure.
What is your favorite type of direction?
I love it when I get on set and the photographer and we start with a vibe and then they let me just explore it.
Okay.
I found it very difficult sometimes on set where I'm being told consistently how particular I need to be about things, because it is difficult when someone else has an image in their head of what they want, for me to try and understand what that is and then mimic it exactly, especially because I'm not that person or I'm not that image. And I'm going to do what I can to make it look like that. But I feel like there's a preconceived expectation of what they want or what they think it's going to look like, and it's hard for me to achieve when it wasn't me to begin with. So I really love it if we start with like a general vibe, like, okay, like, and it's interesting because this is like how it flows into acting, right? They give me a sort of character to embody. So they'd be like, okay, you're cool girl, you're sexy girl, you're chill girl, like this is, and then you'll also, with hair and makeup and the clothes, like it'll mimic that anyway. And so then you're kind of just like, how do I want to be cool in this outfit? Like, how do I want to be sexy in this outfit? How, Yeah. And then you can kind of embody that. So there's a lot of embodiment as well. And I would just kind of take on the vibe as like a sort of character, like a loose layered character.
Yeah.
And
I think you, when we were in the elevator at what hotel were we at? The Hilton? Did you stay at the Hilton in Melbourne?
Yeah, I think so. On the little
elevator. We had like minus 11 minutes. Like your car was almost leaving, and Andy was like, "I want to pick," and we were like, "Okay, quick, get the shot." And I gave you a vibe so quickly, and you immediately were like, "Yes." You were like, "I love you. Go." Watching your work is so fun.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe Australia's Next Top Model, you should do a little cameo and teach them, because...
Well, I actually do model mentoring for the First Nations Fashion and Design not-for-profit organisation that I work with. So apart from being an ambassador and a board of director with them, I predominantly, the reason that I signed up with them is because I was to mentor Indigenous models and creatives that were coming through the organisation into the industry. Yeah. So I started mentoring there. There was a lot of learning in that experience too. I guess believing that I had something to offer and give, and then how to translate that into teaching it to someone else, but in their own way.
How did you go translating and teaching to embody self-worth when essentially these girls have come forward and it's so like image-based, what they're asking of you? Like, how does that work when you're teaching them? Was there any part of that you had to kind of like, I guess you're not teaching them, but more like reminding them and instilling in them?
I think the biggest lesson for me with fashion, with my experience as a model in the fashion industry, was that my success was dependent on someone else's opinion of me. Yeah. It wasn't dependent on how hard I worked, which sounds really unfortunate. But so in a sense of translating that to, young models coming into the industry, just being like, don't take anything personally, because it's not really about you. It's about, they're looking for something very specific. They've been creating a line or a mood board, or they've like been working on what it is, how they want to market it, all this stuff. And the very last piece of the puzzle is the model that they book. And so ultimately at the end of the day, it's not you personally, or it's not who you are. It's whether or not you look a certain way, or you're like aesthetic is the vibe that they're going for, or all of this stuff that they've already put in place and created, like that's the, and then the final piece is you. And so it's not that serious.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Absolutely. It can even come down to the date that they're shooting on if you're
Right.
like it's so granular of what they're looking for. I've had that with acting. I don't know if we talked about this. I went to acting school in the US.
I don't know if you mentioned that or not.
That was how I got started doing what I do. And yeah, I stopped I had a really bad experience on set and hadn't had that much experience before. So an ingenue is probably the right word when you're like the young woman that they cast. And the director didn't know what he liked about me at the time. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he liked something. Realised what it was. I reminded him of his ex-girlfriend and he fired me. Yeah. And then I went behind the camera for 3 months. I was like, I'm a bit fed up of my face and how I emote being... And especially when you're in Melbourne as an actor and you're just getting started, the roles are episodic guesties and usually it's crime drama, like those bread and butter shows, and you're always the girlfriend crying because the lead has died and they're trying to solve the murder and you're suspect number one because you have DNA on you. And you're like, okay, cool, I'll do it.
Very specific, stereotypical role right there.
Every audition is you crying. How well you do in your police interrogation audition. And it's like, I'm so bored. So I went behind the camera and then I just never came out of it because I was doing Scanlan campaigns and working and I was doing Vogue and all of it was kind of like coming into its own and I just loved it. And I was like, hang on, I'm actually really good at this.
It's like, this is actually, it's kind of like you have an idea of where you're going, but it doesn't, it's like the door or the opening to like where you're going, but you can't quite find it. And then you're like, oh, this is it. This is the space I was supposed to go. It was kind of like, I'm feeling a little bit similar in the sense of like acting, like, okay, my door was like, I modeled and I've done all this modeling and stuff. And then I was like, oh, then I like ventured off into this little acting and I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Oh, this is it. Wow. Okay. But all those years of modeling were not for nothing. They were for this, you know, they were for me to expand and grow and learn and take what I have with me into this industry. So I couldn't imagine if I had started in film without what I know from modeling.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a lot of transferable skills and like those have really benefited me on set in my experiences.
Absolutely. You would just feel natural around all of it.
I don't care that there's a million people witnessing me. I don't care about there being cameras everywhere. Like I'm very not camera shy. I'm comfortable in front of people trying to create something. I'm very confident with direction. Like all of that stuff was really great.
When you started auditioning, did you have an acting coach?
For my auditions, yes.
Did you start looking at acting before the scripts came up, or did the scripts come up and then you started acting?
The opportunity came first.
Right.
Yeah. I wasn't looking to start acting when I got the opportunity.
Was it for this film or just acting in general? You started getting some scripts and you were like, oh, wait, and then
it was
you came up.
Mad Max first.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just a lot longer in post-production.
Have other Australian models been looked at for Mad Max before?
Yeah. Abby Lee was in
I thought
Fury
so.
Road.
Am I imagining this, or have I seen a Rush cover of her and that's why I'm thinking of this?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she kind of got her start there too, I think. Potentially, I don't know, she might have been doing stuff before then, but that was a moment for her too. So
George, what a guy. Just
I know.
Bringing you all out of the cavalry.
I don't know, like, yeah, it's so interesting. But yeah, so I actually got asked to audition for Furiosa. And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, you know, I love trying new stuff. I love exploring new things. And it's so crazy because when this moment happened, I like remembered something that I said like years ago. So when I was modeling and I was sitting in the glam chair before a shoot, and I think this happened a couple times, I had like hair and makeup people or people on set be like, have you ever thought of acting? I feel like you could be an actress or whatever. And I was just like, my response was always, I'm not looking to do it.
Yeah.
But if an opportunity ever presented itself, I'd give it a go. And then this moment happened where it like rolled in And it was like, we're interested in Charlee potentially for this role. Would you be interested in auditioning? And I was like, wow. It's like, there it is. It's like, yeah.
So good.
I was like, I said I would give it a go. So like, let's do it. Like I'm totally open to it. So then I worked with an acting coach on the audition piece and I Zoomed with the director a few weeks later. We had a Zoom.
George Miller. He handed me an award. I won Tropfest when I was like 6 years ago, and he handed me the award, and I nearly peed my pants. I love him. He's such a legend.
He's so beautiful. He's honestly just like. He's just like he's got like grandfather energy. Yeah, he's so loving. He's so kind, and he's very thoughtful and considerate of others. Considering there's so many people on his film sets, like the Mad Max film sets have hundreds of people on them.
Where did you shoot?
I shot in Sydney.
Right.
We were actually shot in Kurnell, where they could kind of manipulate the land and make it how they want.
I've seen a lot of like shoots and stuff are out there, aren't there?
There's so many things have been shot there. Yeah. Brands, even other films have all been shot there. They did do a period in Broken Hill though, as George traditionally does, shoot in Broken Hill for his Mad Max films. And then I shot my parts in Sydney at Kurnell.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did you go dissecting a script?
I worked specifically with Nico, who co-wrote the script with George.
Okay.
He's a dramaturg, and so I spent months sitting in the rehearsal room with him dissecting the script, and it was some of the most favourable memories I have.
Am I right in saying there's no visual of you embodying that character out yet?
It's the trailer, but people don't know it's me. So I have like a skull I have a skull like helmet on. A lot of people think it's a guy. And I'm like,
okay, so we can't say too much more.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I learnt a lot, obviously, with the first film because I didn't know much of anything. So I learnt a lot. So we did work on like a couple different things, and then it's ultimately once you prep the body and the mind, when you get on set, you just have to let it all go. And you just have to trust that your body remembers everything you've learned.
How did you go prepping the body and the mind? Like before you would go on set, were you doing...
Oh my God, I was so intense. My character, she's so intense. And so to like get into her frame of mind and her energy, it just had to be intense.
How did you prepare to be intense?
Well, yeah, obviously, like we all have our processes and stuff, and depending what I'm shooting on the day.
You're on Process the Podcast, doll. So
oh my God, of course. Hi, everyone. We're at Process the Podcast. Let's get into it. So the process was...
You're like, I'm not telling you. I'm like, great. Thanks,
sorry, no. Oh, okay, process. Oh my God, yeah, awesome. So...
Are you joking?
Well, I'm on the line of like, I don't know how much detail I can get into specifically about this film, but I do know we are talking about processes. So I'm like, I've got process of a lot of other things, but it's been so far, every experience has been different, but I have found the common denominators that have really helped. So music,
yes,
big music fan. I created playlists for my characters. Really helps me get into whatever vibe they're in for that scene.
Can you give me an example of playlist, or like what artist you would listen to for Furiosa?
So for Furiosa, I got into a lot of Hans Zimmer.
Oh.
Hans Zimmer is iconic.
Okay.
Like he's just so good. Oh, you just put that shit on and you just block the world out and you just go on a journey with like the orchestra. It's so emotional. It's really emotional work. I love Hans Zimmer. He's amazing. So Hans Zimmer was a big influence for my character in Furiosa musically. And I'm also really big on scent.
Oh.
So I have a very keen sense of smell. I love the smell of things. I developed fragrances for my characters too, how they smell.
How did you go about doing that?
Well, I first think about their character and their environment and what they kind of stand for, and it weirdly, you can kind of connect that to a scent in a weird way.
So was Furiosa quite earthy and like...
Well, yeah. So
was that your potions coming back from when you were a child?
Right?
Yeah.
No, that's just my witchiness. It's just me being a weird little witch. No, it's...
That actually does really suit you. You do post some witchy shit on Instagram.
I do get into my witch vibes. I'm very ethereal. I love fantasy. Like I'm all about like the fairies and the witches and like the fantasy and like imagination. Like I'm really into that. But yeah, so scent comes through really strongly. So with my character for Furiosa, she's a mother and she's a warrior and she's a leader. So there's like a lot of masculine, but there's also this like femininity about her as well. And so the scent had to really mimic that.
A bit like Women Who Run with the Wolves vibe. Have you read that book? I
have that book, and I think I read like the first chapter and then I got distracted with life and never returned. I've heard it's like it's amazing though. I've heard. So, but I haven't gotten into that yet. But maybe it sounds like it might be like that.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I actually ended up mixing 2 fragrances that I found, because I found one that was really masculine and it was like quite leathery and oud, like leather and oud and all these kind of masculine smells, which I think is like predominantly how we experience her in the film. But then because she is a mother and because she's so loving and so caring, I had to have this like top layer of like sweetness over it. So I found something that was quite sweet and it's, I suppose, like florally, not too floral, but like sweet with like a little floral, and that was kind of like what went over top. So there was this like masculine, but then this sweetness to her. And I would spray that on like every morning on my costume, and just that would be like me, a little process of me like getting into her energy.
Yeah.
And what's amazing now is I only wear the fragrance when I'm embodying the character. So I wouldn't wear it any other time. So only when I'm on set. And so I have the fragrances like now like stowed away in my little like memory boxes, and when I get them out and I smell them, it takes me back to that time, which is what I love about fragrance, when it really transports you. And so now when I smell it, I'm just like, oh, I'm like, I smell her, I smell this whole experience, like it takes me to these memories. And I also love the fragrances I find for my characters, and I smell them and I'm just like, oh, that's her. That's her. Like, it's not me, it's her.
What was Margaret was your character?
Yeah, Margaret was character for Anyone But You.
What was her scent?
Her scent was so fun. She's fun. She's like flirty, but she's confident. She's like in herself. So like hers was like very feminine. It was floral, but I think there's like it's a little musky, but it's very sweet and floral. And I love hers too. I smell hers and I'm like, yes.
I'm waiting for you to book like one of the A-listers fragrance campaigns after this.
I've actually thought about sharing my fragrances on Instagram with people and being like, just sharing the process with people. You know, I've wanted to do that because I'm sure at some point down the line I'll have fragrances of my own. And so I've really thought about sharing the process, but I'm on the fence right now because I'm like, I want to share it with the people, but then also it's this special thing that I have
that's just for you.
That's just me and the character, and it's like it's a golden thread. It's like how we connect, and it's how I find them. So I'm like, there's a part of me that's also really protective of that.
Yeah, what if someone on Instagram's like, oh, it smells rank? Then
well, I actually don't give a fuck. I'm like, I don't care like what you think about it. Like, this was my experience. But I don't know yet. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
I haven't figured it out. But because I had like pictures of the fragrances and stuff. Because I've shared my music element. I created a playlist for Margaret, and the first like 5 songs is what I listened to every day, which really got me in her like funky little vibe. And I created a playlist and added extra songs that like really, I think, encapsulated her energy.
Yeah.
And I loved sharing that. I thought that was really interactive. I think that's fun. I love sharing music. But no, something about the scent is still a bit like, there's something really personal behind it. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm sure I'll get to a point where I'm ready to like share it around. Like,
spritz everyone.
It's like, oh, everyone go and smell like Margaret.
Amazing. What other processes did you like bring into it? Was your trailer covered in imagery, or were you, because you know a lot of actors become very tactile because they have to, especially new actors, they become so attached to the work that they did in the past, they don't trust themselves when they're on set. Yet it kind of takes, it's a muscle that you have to flex to trust yourself, I think, to deliver. Because as well, when you're on set, sometimes rehearsals, and then you finish rehearsals and then there's quite some time before you get called up to do your scenes in the production schedule, it can be somewhat lost. So there's a lot of tactile that a lot of actors like, I mean, Heath Ledger apparently painting his entire apartment black for the Joker, like little things that you're just like, whoa, and like stories. But did you bring anything with you that was aside from sense, or was that enough?
definitely with those long periods, like music really helps keep you there. You just keep listening to like the music to keep your energy in that space. But I also collected for my characters was like a talisman. So I would find an object that I felt represented them or was a representation of me and them or something as well. So with my character in Furiosa, I had a very specific clear quartz crystal that I have in her little like belt pocket, which you'll see in the movie when it comes out. And you just know that I've got my little crystal in that on me like at all times. So I had that, and that I would always like hold it in my hand when I was like listening to my music, and I'd kind of like play around with it. I'm not 100% sure what it did for me yet.
Yeah.
But it was something that I felt was like hers, but also mine. I think it just helped anchor me.
Yeah.
In some way. Mm-hmm. And then with Margaret, I had collected a couple of seashells. Because she's very beachy and all that stuff. So that was kind of like...
The way that you talk about the difference of them and how like elevated you are versus grounded is actually so amazing.
Well, yeah, it really encompasses who they are, but it's my way of kind of finding them. Mm-hmm. Because, I don't know, I feel like the experience I've had with my characters so far is that they're not me. Mm-hmm. They exist outside of me. Like they're real, they exist, they're somewhere, but I'm like finding my way to them. Mm-hmm. So all these little things, right? It's like music that gets me in the vibe, or it's like little things that represent them, or it's their smell. And I'm like, I guess if like you were to explain someone to me from your family or one of your friends, you might be like, this is what she smells like, this is her necklace,
yes, totally,
and this is what music she listens to. And I'd probably have a good idea of like her vibe, right? So it kind of feels like that for me with my characters. Yeah. I'm like finding that on my own. And I'll share a little bit of witchiness with you.
Bring it.
Another thing that I loved doing for my characters is I love like tarot readings and oracle readings. I have a lot of...
On behalf, like how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a lot of tarot decks and a lot of oracle decks, and depending on which one I felt called to at the time, I would flip cards for my characters and say like what they wanted me to know or something. And it's crazy what I flipped. Some of the cards that I flipped, I was like, whoa, like that what they read was so like on point for what I was experiencing.
Wow.
Or
can you give me an example?
So for an example with Furiosa, I have this beautiful oracle deck called Earth Warriors, I believe. And it has every card kind of represents different types of Indigenous tribes from all different countries. And it's really beautiful imagery. Trying to think. Alana Fairchild, I think, does this deck. And it's really beautiful. And there's a specific card in there. I want to say it's number like 22 or something. And it's I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's called like Ingonima or something, and it's a lion on there. Yeah. And at the time in my process with her, I was learning how to vocally take up space. I was learning how to scream. I was learning how to yell. I was learning how to be a warrior, be a mother, be a leader, like all this really intense stuff. And then I flipped this lion card, and the description was like, so, whoa. I was like, okay, this is what I need to know right now. And it was really like, it was this, step into your courage. Like, don't be afraid to like roar, like like take ownership of these things. And that's specifically all about like knowing when to pounce.
Yeah.
Like preserving all your energy and knowing when you need it and knowing when to roar and knowing...
Very animal.
Yeah, it was like... But also the lion is the king. He's the leader. He's a warrior, he's a protector, like all this stuff that was very resonant to my character. So I decided that was something kind of important as well to do. So I've sort of incorporated card readings
Bit
as
of
well.
witchy,
Bit of witchy, you know, bit of witchy, bit of all the things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, anything
Yeah.
that you find takes you somewhere is a part of the process.
Can we go back to your Indigenous heritage? Because you're incredibly articulate about it now. But when did that kind of come in that you were like grounded in it? And it wasn't just DNA. It was who you are in the industry. I'm Charlee.
It's always been a big part of my life. It's always been how I identify.
Yeah.
Because I've known it since, I was little. Like, that's who I am. So it's always been a big part of how I identify. But what I missed growing up was I missed a lot of ritual. I missed a lot of knowledge that was passed down. My family.
Like ancestry and the...
Yeah. So I didn't grow up with traditions. I didn't grow up being super involved with my Aboriginality. It's just something that I knew of. And that's because my family is part of a stolen generation. So we lost a lot of that.
Right.
And so I never got passed on anything. We didn't have those traditions and stuff. So it was something I always knew and identified as, but didn't know anything about. I would say in terms of me really choosing and taking charge of how much I want to know about what I identify with, it's something that I'd thought about for a very long time. Like prior to COVID, my whole life, I've been like involved in lots of Indigenous activities in and outside of school and all this stuff. And then obviously I did modelling and I moved overseas and I was travelling the world. And so it's always there. It's always a part of me. But in terms of me being like, this is something that it's important to me now that I know. Actually, the year before the pandemic, so 2019, and it started with the Darwin Aboriginal Art Fair. And I went there alongside Vogue, and that's where I met the founder of FNFD,
Right.
the organisation I'm with. I actually met her there for the first time. So I went, and that was a crazy, beautiful experience to go and really connect with artists with their work, like on the spot. It's not like you're buying it from a wall or a website. Like they're there.
Yeah,
you can really have that connection directly with artists and artwork and all that. So that was really amazing. And then it was until the pandemic, I was like, okay, I finally have space to really explore what this is. And so I'd reached out to her and was like, well, I know that we met. How's everything going? Because they had also just started around that time as well. So I was like, well, how are things developing? Where are you guys at? Let's have a conversation. And then the Zoom that we had just was like fireworks and sparks. And I was like, oh my God, I was so inspired by all the ideas that they had for programs. And I just wanted to help and be a part of it. And kind of without asking, I kind of instated myself as ambassador. I was like, I'm on board, I'm helping, I'm doing all the things, just make me the face. But they were just like, oh my God, yes, this is amazing, And so it was such a, it was such a beautiful, equally loving, giving and receiving relationship. So all that I was helping with them in terms of the fashion industry, I was also learning about my culture. With the programs that we do, I've been able to go into community and be on country and meet elders and work with so many incredible young artists and young models and learn about traditions that aren't necessarily from the land I was born from, but learning any of it is so important to me. And so I have just felt like my relationship with FNFD is more than just me wanting to be involved with an organisation, and it makes sense because it's Indigenous and fashion. It's no, this is my learning. This is where I'm getting this is where I'm learning about my culture and connecting with my culture and the people, and this is where I identify, and I'm finding my belonging in my Aboriginality through these experiences. And I'm learning and expanding that and finding belonging in other experiences outside of the organisation, but it really started there and I've really nurtured it there. So I've felt a lot of shame in identifying and representing something I know nothing about.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of shame in that. And I was like, no, it's important to me that the work I do is authentic and it's intentional, and I know I want to be able, if I'm representing my culture, I have to know about it. Like, it's otherwise, you know, like...
Yeah. Otherwise, it's that thing where you're cheating.
Right. It's that thing where I'm cheating or whatever. But also I don't want that. I want to know about my culture. So this has been, a really beautiful experience. And I finally, it started with me owning it and starting to talk about it. But then it was like, okay, I'm learning it as I'm sharing it at the same time.
Have you ever felt a resentment towards the fashion industry for working with your Indigenousness?
This is my experience in the fashion industry, is because I don't look Indigenous, people don't assume I'm Indigenous. People assume I'm more white or Caucasian or whatever we want to call it. So
you haven't run into that?
So I haven't run into any of that. I haven't experienced that. And it's been weirdly a blessing and a curse. It's like, okay, it's a blessing I'm not having to experience any kind of tokenism specifically or any kind of racism. But at the same time, I'm not being recognized as something I identify with. So there's also been a little bit of like a struggle as well with that.
How have you brought your Aboriginality into the role in Furiosa?
Well, funny you say that. Not funny you say that. Totally on point. Because the character, she is the leader of a community, and it's, you know, so her role is so community-based, and she's also a warrior, like, and a mother. Like, all of that stuff really does, like you were saying, it really does encapsulate kind of my culture. Yeah. In a way, the essence of my culture.
Much.
Yeah. Because especially like my Aboriginality is matriarchal. It's from my mother's side. So it's feminine in that way of like, I guess when I think of motherhood, my mother and her grandma, like that's all my Indigenous like bloodline. And obviously being a warrior, being someone who protects the people, protects family, her being a leader of the community, I'm like, I'm kind of already like doing that. Like being one of the first Indigenous models to have done some of the things I've done, which still to this day, like I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
To have done some stuff. Challenging isn't the right word. It wasn't challenging that idea, but it was, I guess, really kind of making me aware of that, like these things that this character stands for. I already relate to her in so many ways because it's kind of happening in my own life. And that's a big part of acting too, is finding how you relate to your character, what the threads are. And I found with her specifically, provide a lot for my family. So I have that like warrior and, you know, leading her community. I feel like I'm involved in leading my community. And motherhood is something I was exploring. No, not in that way. I just realized how that sounded. I'm like, not in that way.
Did you get a dog, or are we talking like?
No. So I do have a dog, and I also have like niece and nephews and friends that had babies. And so what I really was leaning towards was that spending so much time with something or someone that requires so much of your care for it to survive.
Those that can't fend for themselves.
You know, and then being protective of that and understanding what that role is. And so spending lots of time with kids, just lots of time with kids and trying to understand them and like just that maternal instincts. And because I'm a woman, they're naturally there, right? They just sort of tapping into them. All the things.
I want to talk to you about hard work.
Yeah.
Yes, you have done some things that no other Indigenous woman has done before in the modelling industry, right? I've listened to podcasts and seen articles where it's like brand, I won't even call them brands, they're fashion houses, they're not brands. I think you probably broke records at the amount of shows that you've done. I read that you did 40 one year. International Fashion Weeks is what I'm talking about, right? What did you learn about hard work when you were doing those?
Oh my gosh.
Because I can imagine you would have started that as one person and finished it as another.
Completely. So oh God, I feel like there's so much that we could go into. Like if we start at my very first fashion circuit ever, I don't think I've ever learnt so much about myself and so much about the industry. Like that was really such a ball changer, game changer.
Ball breaker.
Ball breaker, yeah. Obviously, it was my first time doing a season, so I just learnt so much about all the fashion houses and brands that I'd never heard of before that are huge brands. But when you don't know until you know. And also so much about myself, because you also have to like what I wrote, and I also wrote this in a recent article, the balance between what you need and the demand is really difficult. And the first time you do it, you throw all your needs out the window.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to like provide for what's expected of you. And because you don't know anything and you're new. And I feel like that probably translates into a lot of industries. And you just do do the work and you figure the rest out when you can, or however you can. And then slowly, the more you do them, you can just, because you're more aware and you know what to expect, you can kind of develop like structures and things and put things in place for you to be able to still fulfill your needs, to then be able to perform,
like have the stamina to keep up with their needs.
With the demand. Yeah, exactly. So it's like in a season where I did 40 shows, it's like, what do I need to be able to like do that? And I would have to go through and think like what my non-negotiable needs are, right? Like a certain amount of sleep, food, or exercise, connection, downtime, whatever it is for you individually, and how I could incorporate that into the day given the schedule that I have. And it's tricky to do, especially when you start and you have a lot to do and you're trying to do well. I don't know, you just do it. I feel like I heard this in an interview as well recently with like, I can't remember who it was, but there was another actor being interviewed and they were asked like, when you're on set or you do these things, like how did you like learn about it? And they were just like, you just do it.
Yeah.
You just get in there and you just do it. You kind of like, and I'm very much like, I'm a fast learner and I'll learn on the spot with experience. I prefer to do things. Like to learn things as I do them rather than have someone sit and tell me and I've got to like remember it all.
Well, that ties into you being in your body and modelling. As an actor, you're expected to move. You can only intellectualize for so long until they make you get up and move your body.
Running sides is such a small part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the first thing I learned when I started speaking to a bunch of actors. They're like, knowing your lines is like the last thing you need to know. Like everything else you have to know first.
Yeah.
The lines are like the last thing. And so once you know your lines, it's like, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Like you've got to find who the character is physically. You know what they're saying. You know what they're thinking and what they're going to say. So then how would they act? How would they embody that physically?
Yes. I'm really happy that you didn't go to acting school. It's a bit broken, to be honest.
I've heard that from a lot of people. I actually honestly carried shame around it for a while, because coming into the industry in the way that I did, I met so many other actors who have worked for years and studied so hard and worked really, really hard to get the opportunities they have. And the fact that I hadn't studied and the way the opportunity that I received presented itself to me, I felt shame in like accepting that and owning it and honoring it. And I would kind of, if ever I was in a conversation with someone, I felt like I would have to make that quite small, that experience, or not talk about it, or maybe talk about it differently. Yeah. Because I didn't want to make them feel bad or them feel. I was a bit people pleasing, you know. But it took me a while to really be like, no, everyone's journey is so different. Yeah. This was my journey, and I just have to like own that's how I got here. Yeah. And everyone's meant to get here in their own time, in their own way.
I think the slog that you did with the rigor of modelling is your own version of their acting whatever journey to get to wherever they've gotten to. Like, they're not the same because you weren't speaking lines in front of an iPhone in their apartment for years and years and years, like slogging it. You were doing your own version of that.
Yeah.
You know? And now obviously you're in very physical characters because your strength is your physicality and your ability to move. It's just kind of how you look at it, you know?
Thanks for putting that out there. I'm like, you know what, you're right.
Totally. What is next after Furiosa comes out?
I don't know.
Is there a film in the pipeline? Are you in director meeting conversations? Are we looking for the next thing?
At the moment, there isn't anything in the pipeline. Also, I don't know when this comes out, if there might be something going by the time this comes out. But as of right now...
It's about a month.
Yeah, who knows?
It's really far ahead, so anything could happen.
Anything could pop up any day.
When does Furiosa come out?
May.
Yeah, because the world's going to stop. Yeah.
I'm going to be wherever.
Go and take meetings.
I'm going to be wherever Warner Brothers wants me.
So for the sake of this coming out in March and then Furiosa coming out in May, I know you're a big deal in that film because of the ranking on IMDb, but just how big is the role? I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness and I don't know. I'm like blind to it.
No, I don't know because I also don't want to like G it up.
And then people are like, oh.
Yeah. And then, right. And people are like, oh. But also, I mean, my experience with her was like massive.
Have you seen it?
It's huge. No.
So okay.
No, I've done a little bit of like ADR and I've seen some bits and bobs, but like no.
ADR, for everyone that's listening, is when you go in and you basically dub your own lines again for whatever reason they weren't captured correctly. Yeah. So they play on screen what the action is going to happen, and then you're like, holy shit, that's me. Like, wow, what do I say? And then you've just got to deliver whatever line that is a little bit fobbed or whatever on the day. Yeah, sometimes like it's windy and or like your outfit is like catching on the mic or whatever, and so if it's you've got to go in and they'll make you kind of re-say the line or so they can I have one memory of ADR and it was on Deadline Gallipoli. I played a nurse in the Foxtel show and my one ADR line was, the Christmas mail's here. It was sick. I delivered that line like you wouldn't believe. Like 1,000,000 times too, I bet. But it was actually really important Christmas mail to the plot. Like it was paramount, so I gave it all I got. Yeah. It was so good. Well, that's kind of like what my character is in Furiosa. Oh, okay. So she moves the plot line along. Yeah, but she really does instigate the plot line. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So you belong at the top of the IMDb, it sounds. I love this. Regardless of my screen time, she's a very important character. Own it. Whatever. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited and I'm also so not ready. The loyalty and like intense Mad Max fans, they're so incredible and there's so many of them and they're so powerful and they're so strong and they're so great and I'm just like, God, I'm part of that world now and I just don't know what that's gonna look like. So excited. So it's exciting, but I'm also like I don't know. I'm excited but I'm nervous and I just want everyone to enjoy it and have a beautiful time and I want them to really love her. You also haven't said her name. Well, I think I can say it. Should we not, in case we can't? No, I think I can. Wait, because I said it in an interview, but maybe I could say it, but you could bleep it out maybe. If I can't. I can't say it. A lot of work for me, no, I'm kidding. Put the little dolphin sound over. Okay, I'll go beep. Say your name. 3, 2, 1. Mary Bassa. Oh, Mary Bassa. Yeah. Wow. So, yeah. Okay, so cool. So people were screaming like, Mary Bassa! They were just like, Mary Bassa. When she's out in the world and people experience her, like her energy is like with me forever. Like she was my first. She was my first. Yeah. Well, we had such a beautiful journey together, but I feel like what she represents, my goal is to honor that hard. So when all of this starts coming, I'm not going to be presenting as her. I'm going to be presenting as stuff, what she stands for. Yeah. That's important to me. Well, they're very linear. Like you're very... Yeah. The foundations, the core values of it all. I'm glad I got this interview in. It sounds like it's going to be such a ride for you. Yes. I don't know. Interview me again after. We can do it. You've aged 10 before years. Got so many more grey hairs. But no, so I'm excited to
I'm excited for everyone else to experience her, but
I'm so excited for you. So thanks for coming on my pod.
thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I'm like, do you need like a podcast? Like,
you're a bit busy, doll. What do you want to do? What are you thinking?
Just whenever I'm in town, I'll be like, hey, do you need a podcast like buddy?
Do
you need like a
Do you want
duo?
to just chat? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We could definitely
do you need a co-host?
Yes.
I'll come in and co-host.
I would love that. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We drop episodes every single week. So hit the subscribe button and we'll see you next Sunday.